So, all right, so welcome. So Mr. Jensen was a little late, and you guys are awesome starting. So for those of you that are watching the video, we are going to start like halfway through the questions and work our way sequentially through them, and then everybody's going to leave, and I'll go back and I'll just cover some of the beginning questions that they've already covered. Okay, yeah, a little late. It's just a little late. It's like 3 after, right? It's 3 after, something like that. So, all right, so let's look at the course overview. Cool. All right, so did we answer how did World War end? Does somebody want to give us a quick, succinct answer on that one? Okay, Hardy did. Somebody want to just do a really quick repeat for the people on video, and then we'll move on. Yeah, Frankie, go ahead.
Okay, so I think you guys can hear me. But Jacob did a really good job of summing this up. He was talking about all the whole army part of it. But my point was that Wilson's 14 points had kind of been distributed through Germany as more of a, I wouldn't say exactly a propaganda scheme, but almost. And so Germany had sued for peace under Wilson's 14 points. And so they sued for peace. And then Wilson said that they had to make democracy. So Germany made a democracy, and then a bunch of countries came together and made a treaty.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. It was, yeah, for me, one of the critical points is because World War I ended the way it did, it led to World War II, and it ended by Germany asking Wilson for the for peace based on the 14 points, and then at the Treaty of Versailles, Wilson went back on his word, and it created a lot of angst and frustration with Germany, which leads to Germany going through all of the issues and problems that they did leading up to Hitler. So cool. All right, let's go to the next one. What 3 governmental actions in 1913 transformed the structure and scope of the federal government? So I'll answer a couple of these, and then we'll get some of you guys to answer, and we'll make a variety. You just need to remember that the 3, the Federal Reserve Act transformed the way that the federal government controlled monetary supply, the money. The 16th Amendment, and don't judge me, but I always get 16th and 17th Amendment wrong, mixed up. I think I'm dyslexic in that area. 16th Amendment, if I remember right, is it the state? Is it the senators? Or is it the income tax? Income tax. Thank you, Lyndon. So it's the income tax, which again increases the power of the federal government to be able to have a direct flow of money from the people. They don't have to go through the states. And then the 17th Amendment was the direct election of senators by the people, and that also cut the states out of the equation. So Shauna, we are on winning World War I, number 2 is the one that we're covering right now. So the theme or the connection between all of those is that the federal government is becoming bigger, more powerful, more able to reach out and pull levers of power, while the states are slowly getting pushed to the side. Yep, Kinza, that's perfect. That's awesome. The third one is a reminder is the Federal Reserve Act. Okay, so those are the 3. What were the consequences of the Russian Revolution? 2 things for me are pretty important. And when I say 2 things for me, that means that if you come up with a couple of other things that you can back up in an oral exam or a written exam, I love it. I love it. Yes, we get Anastasia. Thank you, Jacob. And so that's like probably the most important one is we got that awesome cartoon Anastasia. The next one is that it forces the Russians out of World War I, which allows Germany to mass its troops and try one last desperate attempt on the Western Front. And then the last one was that it brought the communists to power, and we have communism now in Russia / the Soviet Union for the next 70 years up until 1991. Okay, so those 2. It takes Russia out of World War I, and it brings communism to a world power. What were Wilson's 14 points? Wilson's 14 points, some of them were, you can go read them, some of them pretty benign, dealing with territorial issues. The critical piece of the 14 points is that it was Wilson's proposal for how to create a world peace. All right. Yeah, if you can list all 14 on your written exam, I'll probably give you a 0 and tell you to go get a life. That's probably what I'll do. So, all right. Why did Wilson agree to the brutal Treaty of Versailles? What was it that made him give in and decide to sign the Treaty of Versailles? Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Lyndon. It's the League of Nations. He wanted the League of Nations so bad that he said, okay, I'll agree to the Treaty of Versailles, even though he was going against what he had promised Germany. The League of Legends, nice one. All right, how did the Treaty of Versailles sow the seeds of World War I? Oh, Elena, go ahead.
Quick question about the last one. Was the Treaty of Versailles the one that put a death grip on Germany and like demanded German disarmament and forcing over the fleet? And
Yes, very good. It disarmed Germany. It made them pay reparations. It was the people that signed the Treaty of Versailles. They were a moderate, semi-moderate government, and they had such because they signed it. The German people voted them out, and it kind of opened the door to extremism.
okay, just making sure.
Yeah, so you're actually kind of answering the next one. How did the Treaty of Versailles sow the seeds of World War II? So if you can describe that, it put such a death grip, stranglehold on Germany, sent them into hyperinflation, sent them into a deep depression through the 20s, that it allowed extremists like Hitler to seem legitimate and come to power. All right, cool. So that's that section. So let's look at the next section, ratifying the Treaty of Versailles from Last Best Hope. Somebody tell me, why did the Treaty of Versailles fail in the Senate? There's a dog. Is that a? Oh no, that's a cat. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Frankie, go ahead.
It failed in the Senate because they didn't like the fact that they couldn't decide who to go to war with and who to go to war against.
Yeah, so that was Article 10 of the Treaty of Versailles. I think it was Article 10, if I remember correctly. It was basically, they felt like they were going to give up national sovereignty, that this League of Nations would decide when and where American troops were going to go to war and when they were not. That was the main sticking point. So you could say that, and also, if you want to also address that President Wilson was quite what's the word? Stubborn. It was all or nothing. There was no compromise. So you add grave concerns about sovereignty with trying to compromise with somebody who says this is the work of the Lord and I'm not going to compromise, and it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, stubborn old fool. I'm not sure if I would put it that way, Shauna, but that is definitely one way of looking at it. That is definitely a approach. Okay, so what was the League of Nations? That is I don't need you to give me too much detail. Just tell me it's kind of like a United Nations. It was a proposal by Wilson and to create a government, a world, kind of like a world government, kind of like the United Nations is, in order to stop something like World War I from happening. If you tell me that it came after World War II or something like that, that's obviously wrong. Please attach it to World War I. It was the aftermath of World War I and the Treaty of Versailles. So you want to, as you guys already know this, you're pros at this, and when you do your oral exams, written exams, you connect things. Mr. Jensen just feels happy. I just feel happy. So, all right. Yes, World War One came after. No, no, World War One actually came before World War Two. But that would be awesome if it came after. That would be numerically challenged world. All right. Should the United States have joined the League of Nations? Why or why not? Um, that is an opinion-based question. So you make the connections, kind of like what we did on our assignment, debating the entry into World War One. Pick about 4 or 5, 6 terms and dates that we've studied, be able to wrap it into answering that question, and you'll be just fine. Or 3 or 4. So, why was Harding elected in 1920? If you can remember his campaign slogan, a return to normalcy. That's the big one. People just wanted to get back to just, we were not internationalists at the time. We just wanted to get away from all of the war and all of the craziness and all of the bitter divides over the League of Nations. We just wanted to get back to normalcy. We are on ratifying the Treaty of Versailles, question number 4 from Last Best Hope. Okay, so then from the character, why did Wilson refuse to compromise on the League of Nations? We touched on that briefly. Number one, he's a little bit stubborn. He felt like he really did slide into his evangelical progressive mode of, he felt like this was the work of deity, and would not compromise. I think also from character, it gives a little bit more of a soft version than I do, that there really could have been some medical issues. There could have been some, he could have had a minor stroke. There could have been things like that. So any of those, you can throw that in there. What challenges did Wilson face in this chapter? I leave that up to you. He faced medical issues. He faced a very, very united Republican contingent against him. He was facing the aftermath of, at that point, the worst war in the history of the world. There was a number of challenges in many ways he came across, so as well. And then how did Wilson show character in facing these challenges? That's totally an opinion question. That's you can answer that one. All right. So the next one, writing the Roaring Twenties. So what were the characteristics of the Roaring Twenties? Does somebody have their notes? We talked about 3 specific characteristics. I actually don't have my notes right in front of me. All right, yeah, so somebody just private chatted me. Here's the way we're rolling, is you guys just come and go as you need to. If there's those of you that need to leave early because you got, like, I don't know, you're gonna go sledding, ballet, dancing, whatever, just take off, that's fine. So dentist appointment, sledding, whatever. Yes, so Adelina, thank you. That's a good one. Rebellion, racism, modernism, decline in morality, all of those would work. Decline in traditional morality. I don't want to, if there's some of you guys that are out there that think that whatever your personal morality is, but it definitely was a decline in what people at the time considered traditional morality, the modernity as well. Kinza just in the chat box, that's really good as well. Everything's bigger and bolder. Electricity, the music, the economy, liberation is a good word that I think we used. Love it, Kesley. That's funny. I like that. Jazz, the Utah Jazz won last night. I was very happy about that, but I think somehow she's talking about the 20s. So good. All right. Cool. All right. So just some of those, throw those in there. What were some significant social changes in the United States in the 1920s? Remember, it's the second industrial revolution. So again, we're becoming more and more modern, and the decline in morality. And if you give me in a short essay on a written exam, you give me like 3 or 4 sentences, or 2, not that many, 2 or 3 sentences, and you just talk a little bit about that, you'll be just fine. You'll be just fine. If you're in an oral exam, I won't ask that question. So I shouldn't say that. Sorry. We're going to spend all our time on World War II because that's funner. We'll talk about World War I a little bit as well. So, all right. How was the 19th Amendment passed? You remember that's to give the women the right to vote. So we talked a little bit about some of the struggles, and it took a while. You know, you had the silent sentinel standing outside. So if you just tell me it was an extended period of time, and it took the actually shaming. You know, the ladies that were doing that allowed themselves to get arrested. There was some issues like that. But if you just kind of describe it to that extent, I will just be fine with that. So, all right. What is prohibition? No alcohol, federal law, no sale of alcohol anywhere. How did Coolidge become president? Harding needed to take a break, and so he had a heart attack. He died. Harding died. So that's how Coolidge becomes president. How did Henry Ford contribute to the Second Industrial Revolution? Just the conveyor belt. Why does that not sound right? It's not the conveyor belt. It's the mass production. Thank you. Sorry, am I going too fast? The assembly line. Thank you. I would have thought about that. I would have remembered that in about 2 hours. So thanks for that. All right. So we're going a little fast for some of you guys. So we're going to slow down. I'm going to tell you some stories about my kids when they were younger. They were so cute. There was this one time, I'm teasing, I won't. All right. I'm just kind of stalling for time at this point. All right. So if you'll remember, Coolidge becomes president because Harding dies. The number 6 question, Henry Ford, remember the assembly line. Think mass production, scale. To be able to produce something, a lot of it on a huge, large scale is something that was very unique during this time period. So, all right. What 2 significant court cases did Clarence Darrow argue in the 1920s? Somebody help me out with the spelling of those 2 brothers that he defended. I think it's like the Loeb, Loeb, Leopold and Loeb trial, and the Scopes monkey trial. Thank you, Jaden, and anybody above that answered it that I didn't see. Okay, what was the significance of that is that in that first one, he started talking about the humanity of the criminals. Like today, and we always talk about, oh man, they didn't get hugged by their dad enough, or their mom yelled at them when they were kids. We ought to be a little bit more compassionate on criminals. That just seems commonplace in our society today. This was really the first time that started to get interjected into trials. And then the Scopes monkey trial, of course, was the whole issue about should evolution be taught in a public school. Shifting away from traditional Christianity where they taught creationism to now they're going to be teaching evolution. So those are the 2 significant court cases. All right. How was the idea of eugenics implemented during the 1920s? Somebody want to answer that one?
I can take it, or someone
Yeah, go ahead,
else.
Jacob.
Okay, so so you got to realize first that Charles Darwin just recently released like the theory of evolution. So many people didn't see it as a bad way. So it was basically like you marry someone who will help you survive, right? So people with like traits that would get passed on that weren't good, you know, maybe bad spinal disease or something, you know, they wouldn't marry because they wouldn't have traits that were able to be passed along. So that was one of them. There were many books and articles written on them. And then there was this lady, Margaret Sanger, who was a well-known advocate for birth control, and she fully supported eugenics. So this was because she believed that the fit people should not marry the unfit. That way only the fit people would survive.
Yeah. Yep, I like it. Anybody else want to add to that? And Sam, I'm in the Brady Bunch view, so you know I can see you guys, all of you, and so I don't normally see it. So if you want to just turn on your mics, just turn on your mic and start talking, and I'll just let you have it. So go ahead.
Okay, so, well, he just said everything I was going to say about this, so I'll wait for some time else to chime in.
No, that's perfect. Ditto what he said always works. Cool. Yeah, it is. It's kind of a social Darwinism, the survival of the fittest, that we could actually create a society filled with better.
So I have a question
yeah, go
on
ahead.
on eugenics. Is this people in America who are planning this, or is this happening in other countries?
This is happening in other countries, but it's also happening in this country as well. It's actually, we don't read about it a lot, and it's kind of actually, it's a little disturbing because of our because of how we approach things today. But if you go back in the Supreme Court, there are certain cases where they talk about like forced sterilization of some women and things like that. It gets pretty nasty. So yeah, so this does apply for America as well. It's pretty short-lived. It's a short-lived, but it's kind of a darker period of our history that we don't actually talk a lot about. The eugenics movement. So, all right. Now on that cheery note, let's run to something a little bit more inspirational. How did FDR stage his political comeback? So there's that great. Was it in Last Best Hope or the character book where it talks about him? He gets polio, overcomes it by just sheer force of will, and is able to, at the Democratic National Convention, he's able to stand and walk that short distance and nominate. So cool. So that's about all you probably need to know about that one. So cool. Surviving the Great Depression. The next section, what caused the Great Depression? I think we spent like a class and a half on this. And when I was done, I still felt a lot of confusion. It's like, it's kind of confusing. So somebody give me just a rough, generic, what causes the Great Depression? What leads us to it?
If I can just jump in here real fast. Sorry. What I have in my notes is in 1928, the American economy was booming and everybody was investing in stocks. And then all of a sudden, Black Thursday, the stock market crashed and it significantly lowered America's gross domestic product, and national employment came after that. And that's what you could call the start of the Great Depression.
Yep, I love it. That's all good. I have one thing to add to that is make sure you remember that we talked about the inflation was caused all through the 20s, that they were inflating the currency because the Federal Reserve was putting money into the economy, and so that caused a lot of inflation as well, and it caused a lot of speculation. So if you'll remember that the Federal Reserve actually had a policy that did that will really make Mr. Jensen happy. So yes, Sam, go ahead.
It was kind of like the start of, like, you know, when you get on a roller coaster and you've got that first hill that's like great, and it's like dun, 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 you got your teddy bear and your giant Coke and you're like, everything's great. And then the stock market crashed and so
Yeah, think of it, if it helps. The Federal Reserve was pumping energy drinks into your 12-year-old little brother, just pumping, and your little brother was like running around screaming, taking his shirt off, making faces on his belly button and things like that, doing the whistling belly button, just going crazy. And then suddenly he's just like, okay, I'm done, and crashes and goes to sleep. So that pumping of energy into the economy is the Federal Reserve pumping that extra additional cash money into the economy. So that's kind of how it works. So yeah, Amy, sorry, I'll stop the analogies. Some people are laughing. Amy's just like doing the face palm. Sorry, I will move on. I didn't even make my gross domestic product joke today, and that's my favorite one of like the whole term. That's like my favorite joke that I have planned. It's all downhill from here. Okay, what two aerial feats in the 1920s demonstrated the world that airplanes were the future? It's Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic, and then Billy Mitchell sinking the battleship. So those two. Who was Joseph Stalin? Joseph Stalin was the successor. Yeah, go ahead, Sam. You want to talk about evil dictators? I'll let you.
so Joseph.
Well, if he's going to freeze, I'll go.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sam froze.
Stalin was the lovely man who wasn't Marx. Marx was like, so like.
I think we should just wait because I don't think he knows he's frozen.
Yeah, so Sam, you're frozen up. So sorry about that. Sorry. So yeah, who else was going? I didn't see who's going. I was on my Brady Bunch view. Was it you, Amy? Okay, yeah, Amy, go ahead.
Okay, so Joseph Stalin was the successor of oh, I forget his name. But basically, in Russia during the Russian Revolution, I don't know if I'm talking about the right part of him because I did my presentation on him. But basically, during the Russian Revolution, he became very prominent and worked his way up kind of the, I can't remember the exact party it was called. But he worked his way kind of up the hierarchy of that. Lenin, yes, thank you. And then he became the successor of Lenin by killing off people who kind of stood in his way. And then that's where the purges of Russia started. And he's most well known for during World War II for the Battle of Stalinberg, where Hitler, just kind of to spite him, sent soldiers to the place that was named after him, and he risked, I think it was 1 million casualties on his side just to fight Hitler, and Germany actually surrendered, and then they pushed them all the way back to Germany.
Yep, cool. So that was excellent. So if you remember, he succeeds Lenin in the Soviet Union. He leads the Soviet Union during World War II, and is on the top 10 brutal dictator list. He's number 2 when it comes to body count. He is number 2. Chairman Mao killed more people than Stalin, but Stalin is a number 2. Hitler's like number 3, number 4 in some people. No, I think he's number 3. So anyways, brutal dictator, but was our ally during World War II. All right, let me see. What was Black Thursday? Samuel, do you want to give that one a go? Since you got cut off talking about brutal dictators, you want to talk about Great Depressions?
Sure, I'll just talk about brutal Murphy's Law rather than dictators. Anyways, so Black Thursday was the day when the stock market died because people were living it up for 10 years. And like I said, big roller coaster starting. And then Black Thursday was the tipping point where the stock market crashed. And so all the investments people had made stopped. They were made useless because the stock market crashed. Companies were left scrambling to go and tie up loose ends and make sure that they had what they would. And like the economy just either fell apart or came to a halt wherever it was. And so that's the point that led to the Great Depression, that I guess started the Great Depression.
Yep, sounds good. So again, when you're talking about in an oral exam, if I were to ask a question, or in a written exam, it says what's Black Thursday, you're going to want to start tying in these other, it's Great Depression. You may want to bring in Roaring '20s. It's the end of the Roaring '20s. It's, just as you start to make these connections and tell me a story, that's where you can get all your points. So, all right, number 5, we've already talked about. How did the Federal Reserve contribute to the Great Depression? So again, they were pumping money into the economy during the 20s, feeding those energy drinks to their. Okay, sorry, Amy. Yeah, so it led to inflation. What was Hoover's response to the Great Depression? The traditional view is that Hoover didn't do anything. The reality is that he did a lot. And in fact, much of the New Deal was Hoover's programs. They were just expanded. They were actually brought on a larger level. So Hoover actually did try to respond and to do things. He just wasn't able to. And I don't need you to get specific about specific plans or specific things. Just remember that he actually does react and he does try to do his best. So how did the Smoot-Hawley tariff make the Great Depression worse? Is that when you raise tariffs, you increase the price of goods because you're adding taxes to them, which then reduces the demand, which means that people aren't going to make as much. And you'll actually put people out of work because there's not as much stuff being built. So I keep looking down, and Jacob and Sam have this back and forth awkward conversation. Keep going back and forth. Yeah, Sam, go ahead. I'm not sure what it is, but you guys, I love it.
Anyways, so it's kind of like how, for whatever reason, presidents have like this fantasy that tariffs are always going to work. Like we saw Jefferson do it, and it didn't work out for him. Like right before the War of 1820, he tried to put a tariff to make Britain want to do something, but that backfired, and now it backfired again for I forgot his name. I forgot the president's name, or previous president. Anyways, you guys know who I'm talking about. Anyways, I'm done.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I was private chatting. Somebody that chatted me. So previous presidents include Harding, Coolidge, Hoover. So cool. All right. I wasn't laughing at you, Sam. I was laughing at Jacob. He's really loving this awkward thing. He's got something about that. So, all right. Okay, so let's go to the implementing the New Deal. What was the New Deal? The first 100 days of FDR's presidency, 15 major bills were passed. That's the New Deal, baby. That's the New Deal. So you tell me that, and that'll be great. Okay. Oh yeah, and then it was the intent to bring us out of the Great Depression. So that was the intent. You got it, Dallin. It's the New Deal, baby. That's what I said when my second child was born. That's the New Deal, baby. All right. How did FDR propose to fix the Great Depression? He wanted to increase government, increase spending, create larger, bigger government in order to bring us out of the Depression. And if that exact question popped up on your written exam, you can answer it exactly the same way that you answered the New Deal. The first one, what was the New Deal? How did FDR propose to fix Great Depression? Well, he was going to do the New Deal, and this is what the New Deal is, and that would be great. That would be a solid answer for your exams. What steps did FDR take in the 100 days to fix the Great Depression? So let's talk about that. There was a couple of them, a couple of the bills that were specific that maybe we could talk about. Do you guys have any of those in your notes?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Lyndon.
Number one is the Federal Emergency Relief Act, which circulated more money into local governments who are more affected. But it turned out that he was actually really corrupt and he was using it for his own political agenda. Second act is the Agricultural Adjustment Act, which locked agricultural prices to the rate that they were in 1920. Third one is the National Industrial Recovery Act, and that established industry-wide codes and fixed prices and locked wages.
Yep. Awesome. And don't forget the one that we did our simulation on as well, the Emergency Banking Act. That's a good one to throw in there as well. So if you were to give me one or two of those, probably one would get you mostly credit, and two of those would give you full credit. So just have a couple of those, the ones that are most meaningful to you, and I think you'll do great. So Elena, go ahead.
Can we go over that last one more time?
Yes. So there's a couple of specific bills that became laws that were part of FDR's New Deal 100 days. So the question is, what steps did FDR take in the 100 days to fix the Great Depression? So the Emergency Banking Act allowed FDR to specifically have power to keep banks from doing what banks normally do in the private sector. There was some concern that gold was going overseas, and FDR could step in and say, no, you can't do that. We're keeping all the gold here in America. Remember, this is still gold-backed money. Much of it is. They're starting to introduce the fiat money. I'm confusing. So let me back up just a second. The Emergency Banking Act is just simple way of FDR to be able to control the banks, right? The other one, Lyndon, what was the Federal Emergency Relief Act? Pumped more money into the economy. give me those two, and just know in general, FDR. Then there was the I forget what it is. It's the WPA. It turns into the work. Is it the WPA? It turns into the WPA, but it was a program designed to give jobs to people. So, all right. So a couple of those, and it's good. You're good to go.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, the FDRA. Yeah, thanks, Jaden. All right. How effective was the New Deal? That's kind of a tricky opinion-based. My opinion from the books that I've read is that it wasn't tremendously effective. Many of the bills just increased the size of government, but it actually didn't bring us out of the Great Depression. If you want to argue the other side, feel free. Just have a few points, facts to back it up. Okay. Yeah, Jacob, and that's the critical point. Is the most effective thing that FDR did is that he was just himself. He was very filled with hope. So that was, but he didn't have to pass a law to be cheerful. He just was, and it really did affect the country. So, all right, why did FDR recognize the Soviet Union? I don't know if we really got into this too hard into class. You read it in the books. I don't know. Honestly, if I were to tell you my answer, it would be, I don't know. I've read and done some study. Yeah, there's the trade aspect, but you can argue both sides of this. I won't ask this on the oral exam, and on the written exam, I'll be pretty lenient because I think it's a pretty tough question. And I love the fact that you guys are just grappling with it. So if you grapple with it, give me a couple of opinions. I'll give you full points. Unless you include the word awkward on your answer, then you'll get 0 points, Jacob. So, okay. All right, let me see. Okay, so now we're to appeasing Hitler. What was the Munich Pact? We talked about this. Somebody want to give me a quick summary of what the Munich Pact was? Yeah, Jacob, go ahead.
Okay, I've got to prove to you that I am not awkward sometimes, so that's a debatable point. But the Munich Pact was, yeah, Dallin, it is a valid point that I might be. But so the Munich Pact was a perfect example of appeasement because it basically said to Hitler that they would give him all this land that was in Czechoslovakia, and this was because Hitler he claimed that Germans were slaughtered by the Czechs in that land, but they weren't. But we don't know whether they were. But anyway, so whatever the case was, Hitler demanded for the land, and Great Britain gave it to him, on the promise that he wouldn't expand anymore. So that's why it's appeasement. But he broke that agreement later on, which is awkward.
Yes, it is. It is a little awkward. So if you remember that it deals with the Sudetenland, which is a little part of Czechoslovakia, the Munich Pact basically gave Hitler that part of Czechoslovakia without Czechoslovakia approving it. They gave that part to Germany in exchange for Hitler pinky promising that he wouldn't take any more land. And Hitler does not recognize pinky promises, and World War II starts a year later. So that's the Munich Pact. And like Jacob said, please associate that one with question number 7. What was appeasement? It is the idea. So we're skipping to number 7 really quick here. Appeasement is the idea that you give up something to somebody so they'll stop doing what they're doing. Sometimes it works. So a lot of times it doesn't. And it's become synonymous with the Munich Pact in history. So what is fascism? We talked about this. If you just give me a sense that it's a dictatorial rule, all government control, it tends to be a little bit more on the right. It's usually coupled with hardcore nationalism. My country's better than your country. That's good enough for our definitions. Yep, everything for the state. The state runs everything. In fascism, though, it's interesting. They will a lot of times they'll let companies run themselves as long as they generally obey whatever the government tells them to do. but it is complete government control. So cool. What was FDR's risky scheme? What was that one? It was a little awkward when you did it. Yes, yes, Jacob, it was. Yeah, Jacob, go ahead.
I can take this one too. So the risky scheme was that with all these Supreme Court justices, they were getting old. So he had decided that he said that everyone above 70 would be given an assistant to carry out their duties, because he claimed that sometimes these justices were getting too old to be able to make good decisions. But it was just obvious that what he wanted to do was phase out the old Supreme Court leaders and appoint new ones that would be more favorable to his New Deal policies.
Yep, court packing, right? He's trying to put his friends on the Supreme Court for like extra added Jensen happiness points if you tell me something about checks and balances. I mean, it was definitely a bridge too far for FDR, where he tried to undermine constitutional checks and balances by getting rid of the Supreme Court. So cool. All right. The next one is, what was the second New Deal? So let me see. Somebody want to take that one? Let me see. Hold on. I'm not looking at my. Yeah, Frankie, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the second New Deal was mainly the WPA, which is Work Progress Administration, where in a lot of the posters it was known as Work Pays America, but it was basically a program where a bunch of unemployed people, unemployed people go to like a government run construction site, basically. Like they could dig ditches, they could build buildings, they could build bridges, and they would do the labor and then they would get paid. So they're not actually like fully employed to a company, but they're doing labor to get money.
Awesome. Love it. So you connect the WPA, also the Social Security Act. And if you want the general overview, the second New Deal was another series of government programs that FDR passed in order to try to bring us out of the Great Depression. But because the New Deal wasn't working. So the second New Deal was, let's do it one more time. So, all right, cool. Let me see. Where is my questions? Here they are. What was Hitler's first territorial expansion? So, I think in one of the classes we talked about if the remilitarization of the Rhineland would have really been considered that the first one. For my sake, yes, Shauna, they always do. For my sake, that's what I consider the beginning. That when Hitler remilitarizes the Rhineland, because if they would have done anything to try and stop him, Hitler would have had to. He did not have the military might at that point to be able to follow through. So what was Hitler's first territorial expansion? The remilitarization of the Rhineland, right there by Belgium and France and Germany. They're on the western part of Germany. That was the first expansion. Should he have been stopped then? That is an opinion question. So you will have to decide whether yes or no. But as you do it, understand that this was the point that we really could have easily stopped Hitler from expanding. Why were the 1936 Olympics a victory for the Nazis? Just propaganda. They really were, the Nazis are really good at propaganda, and they really did a great job with the Olympics. And it made everybody kind of go, oh, Germany's not really that bad after all. Elena, how could we have stopped him? The French had troops there right there in France, and this was a clear violation of the Treaty of Versailles. It was a clear violation, and so if France would have sent troops, and if England would have sent troops over, Hitler did not. It would be like me going up against a 6-year-old. I just don't have a chance. I don't have a prayer, and the 6-year-old is just going to take it out on me. So, cool. All right. And 1936 Olympics, yeah, it was just an absolute propaganda coup for Hitler. All right, and then we already answered what was appeasement. Okay, what was appeasement? That's please attach that with the Munich Pact. I still, when I'm reading my very smart, educated adult stuff that I like to read on politics, they always, a lot of times they'll say, "Is this another Munich?" When President Obama signed the agreement with Iran for nuclear issues about a year ago, there was a lot of people that were like, "This sounds like just like Munich. This is going to be a repeat of Munich." Those two are very, very, very close. So yeah, give them a cookie to. Okay, so this last one, World War I and Great Depression era review. We have not actually watched the video yet. That's for Friday. You guys get to watch that video. So let me just kind of do a quick overview. When these questions pop up on the written exam, on an oral exam, I've done a bunch of oral exams and I've actually never gotten to these questions. So for those of you doing the oral exam, you'll want to know them for basic overview considerations, but in the oral exam, I really, I actually don't get to these because we talk about other stuff. I'm not saying don't answer them. Pay attention because it'll give you a good overview. But if you see these on the written exam, generally, I really like to see you guys thinking and making connections and not just regurgitating what Mr. Brown in his cool haircut says on the video. So you can certainly take that down in your notes and tell me. But yeah, oh, did he in his oral exams? Yeah, Mr. Brown and I really like him. Like he's really awesome. I just approach it just a little different when I do oral exams. So cool. So what are the lessons of World War I and the Great Depression? Really just think about that. What are the lessons of World War I and the Great Depression? Too much government, not enough government. What did you learn from World War I and the Great Depression? What were the major shifts? How did we as a culture shift during this era? Larger government, losing traditional morality. We become the second industrial revolution, really think, how is America different after this? So, oh, don't disrespect the memory of Mr. Brown. How could we? He's one of the most respected people I know, especially when he dresses up in pink unicorn costumes. There's nothing but respect for that. All right, what were the important ideas of World War I and the Great Depression era? Again, that is an opinion. You please watch the video, get some ideas from that, but I really would love to hear your perspective. And then who are the important people? Who have we studied that have really stuck out to you? If you're more interested in like the 19th Amendment, give me one of the ladies that fought for the right for women to vote, or maybe FDR, maybe really Calvin Coolidge was somebody that really appealed to you. For you, who were some of the most important people of World War I? Yeah, Harding, Lindbergh, Billy Mitchell, Edith Wilson, whoever really stuck out for you. So, all right. So with that, I think that is the end of that section. I'm going to go back and start answering these first questions, but you guys are more than welcome to stay if you want to rehash them. But if not, you can go ahead and go. And good luck on finishing up your study guide. Remember, you have an automatic extension until Monday. So enjoy that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, since that some of you guys will just totally procrastinate now until Monday night. But my hope is you have a little bit more time to really have a solid, good study guide. So, all right, cool. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you. All right, so now for those of you that are watching on video, I'm going to just run through some of these first questions. we're going to, let me see, let me see, that's not what I want. All right, I'm stalling. I'm just stalling here for just a second. So, okay, cool. So let's run through these. How do I think like a historian? What are the types of questions a historian asks when studying history? For me, you're making connections between what happened then, but also what's happening today. You know, the connections of why does this apply? What can I learn to in order to either prevent this from happening again or replicate it, or what was going on? To me, those are the most important ones. We're making connections. We're looking at cause and effect. We look at the Great Depression. It's not enough just to know that the Great Depression had happened, but what caused the Great Depression? Those type of things. So cause and effect, links, those type of things for the historian. And the types of questions is not yes, no questions, but why. You know, the types of questions that elicit thought and responses. So, what are the major themes of U.S. history? I don't know about U.S. history because for this section, I would stick with maybe let me pull this one up just a second. Yeah, you know what, actually, hold on, you guys, give me just a second. So for those of you that are watching on the video, let me just share my screen really quick. I just pulled this up from the slides. So for those of you watching on video, there's the slide from How Do I Think Like a Historian? Those are some of the things that you could jot down, some ideas. It doesn't have to be these. And then what are the questions a historian asks when studying history? So again, you can just push pause on this video, jot some of those down. I really don't want you to write these down and then just regurgitate them. If this question pops up on your written exam, I want you to grab a couple of these that are meaningful to you and be able to expand on them because of their relevance to you. So, all right, let me see. So a couple of the themes of U.S. history, there's 4 of them that we talked about in class. If there's something that's important to you, some people like to go on different tangents, so that's fine. But there's freedom, there's renewal, there's optimism, and there's destiny. So that's kind of like the four that we're that are the overarching themes for the term. Let me see. Let's go to. I think I need to get to my other. All right, so what is a historical shift? What is a watershed? That's just a major movement from in U.S. history when, for example, the Industrial Revolution, when America shifts from, we shift from going through from agrarian into into factories, modernity, things like that. That's just a major shift, major watershed. You know, we'll talk about going from we're not internationalists to going to international. It's just a big cultural change in America. What are the major events in U.S. history for our class? For this one, we will be for this term, it will be World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, Vietnam War. Those are some of the major ones. Just look at your timeline. That's really that is. And then how does knowing the timeline of U.S. history help us to learn the details? It's like the bone structure of a body. You got the bone structure, and then you start to fill in everything else. It just gives us something to tie it. It's not, don't memorize the dates just for the sake of memorizing dates, but it just gives us the story. It gives us the bare outline of it. So, all right, so why did America enter World War I? Two reasons primarily is the Zimmerman telegram and then the unrestricted warfare in the Atlantic by the subs. So those two, the sinking of the Lusitania was kind of the groundwork of it, but that actually didn't send us into World War I. We actually waited until until there was the unrestricted warfare, and the Zimmerman telegram, I think, was probably the key one. So what caused World War I? We talked about all of the crazy entangling. If you just tell me there was a tremendous amount of entangling alliances, and the countries were very offensive in nature. So they wanted to mobilize before the other one did, and they wanted to get to the front before the other one did. So the offensive nature of the countries and the entangling alliances. What are the pros and cons of alliances? The pros are somebody's got your back. You can be, people will take a little bit longer to attack. So especially if you're a smaller country like a Belgium or the Netherlands or Norway or countries like that, it behooves them to get into alliance because together they are actually stronger. The cons, and that's the big lesson from World War I, is that it can actually force you into a conflict. So that's one of the cons. What did Wilson say the war was about? So if you remember, his idea was that he was going to make the world safe for democracy, safe for freedom. We as Americans we just have to have a higher, nobler cause to do everything. And so he wanted to, when he sold World War I, when he said what it was about, it was to make the world safe for democracy. So that was what he said it was about. And let me see. And then what was the Sussex Pledge? So the Sussex Pledge, that Germany would not attack our passenger ships with torpedoes in the Atlantic. So it was, please connect that with the unrestricted warfare in the Atlantic. That was the breaking of the Sussex Pledge was a big deal that brought us into World War I. So it was just Germany promising, saying, okay, we won't attack passenger liners, and they broke that. And in some instances they broke it, but it was still legal because there was some passenger ships that were knowingly shipping war goods. So, all right. So I think that is all of them, because then at the beginning we started talking about how did World War I end. So I think we're good. So if you have any questions, please come talk to me in office hours tomorrow. I will be in my office if you got any further questions. But other than that, Melissa or Kinley or Jesse, do you have any final questions for me? I'll have this posted. I'm going to start getting it uploaded as soon as we're done here. So it'll take about an hour to get it uploaded. So, all right. Thanks, you guys. You're awesome. We'll see you later. Bye.